My name is Madison, and I never imagined that a single word spoken during an online college class would become the turning point that saved my life. It was a cold February morning in 2023, and I was sitting in my cramped studio apartment in Austin, Texas, attending my Introduction to Psychology course through Zoom like thousands of other students across the country. At 22 years old, I weighed 285 pounds and had been struggling with my weight since middle school, but I had managed to hide behind baggy clothes and carefully angled camera shots throughout my college years. I thought I was safe in the digital world, where I could control how much of myself others could see, but that illusion was about to be shattered in the most humiliating way possible. Little did I know that this moment of complete devastation would eventually lead me to the most transformative year of my entire life. The incident happened during what should have been a routine class discussion about self-perception and body image, topics that already made me uncomfortable given my own struggles with weight and self-esteem. Our professor had divided us into small breakout rooms to discuss how media influences our perception of ourselves, and I found myself grouped with 3 other students I barely knew from previous classes. I had been participating quietly, keeping my camera on but positioned so that only my face was visible, when one of my classmates made a comment about how people who are overweight should just have more willpower and discipline. The conversation was making me increasingly anxious, but I tried to contribute by sharing some research I had read about the complexity of weight management and the various factors that contribute to obesity beyond personal choices. That's when everything went wrong in a way that still makes my stomach turn when I think about it today. One of the students in my breakout room, a guy named Tyler, who had always seemed arrogant and insensitive in our previous interactions, apparently thought his microphone was muted when he made a comment to someone else in his room. His words came through crystal clear to everyone in our group, and when I heard him refer to me using that devastating animal comparison, my entire world stopped spinning for what felt like an eternity. The other students in the room fell silent immediately, and I could see the shock and embarrassment on their faces as they realized what had just happened. I sat frozen in front of my computer screen, unable to speak or move, as the weight of his cruel words settled over me like a suffocating blanket. The humiliation was unlike anything I had ever experienced in my 22 years of life, made worse by the fact that it happened in an academic setting where I had always felt relatively safe and respected. I had worked hard to maintain good grades and participate meaningfully in class discussions, believing that my intelligence and contributions would overshadow any judgments about my appearance. Tyler's comment shattered that illusion and reminded me that no matter how smart or accomplished I was, some people would always see me as nothing more than my physical size. I quickly left the breakout room and logged off from the entire class, spending the rest of the morning crying in my bed while eating an entire bag of chips, which was my usual response to emotional pain and stress. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment replaying the incident over and over in my mind, I realized that I couldn't continue living this way anymore. I had spent years making excuses for my weight, blaming genetics, medications, and a slow metabolism, but Tyler's cruel comment forced me to confront the reality that I was slowly killing myself with food and inactivity. I was pre-diabetic, had high blood pressure, and could barely walk up 2 flights of stairs without getting winded, yet I had been in denial about how serious my health problems were becoming. This moment of complete humiliation became my rock bottom, the point where I finally admitted that I needed help and couldn't continue down this destructive path any longer. The day after the devastating online class incident, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of my entire life by scheduling an appointment with my academic advisor to discuss dropping out of college altogether. I felt like I couldn't face returning to classes where Tyler and other students might be present, and the shame was so overwhelming that I convinced myself that hiding away from the world was my only option. My advisor, Dr. Patricia Chen, was a kind woman in her 50s who had always been supportive of my academic progress, and when I arrived at her office that Thursday afternoon, I was prepared to tell her that I was taking an indefinite leave of absence from my studies. I had rehearsed a story about family financial problems and personal health issues, anything that would allow me to escape without having to explain the real reason for my sudden decision to abandon my education. Dr. Chen listened patiently as I stumbled through my prepared excuses, but her experienced eyes seemed to see right through my carefully constructed lies to the pain and humiliation I was trying so desperately to hide. Instead of simply processing my withdrawal paperwork as I had expected, she gently asked me to sit down and tell her what was really happening in my life, that would make me want to give up on my dreams so close to graduation. Something about her compassionate demeanor and genuine concern broke down the walls I had built around my emotions, and before I knew it, I was telling her everything about the online class incident, my lifelong struggles with weight, and my complete loss of hope about ever being able to change my situation. What happened next was completely unexpected and would prove to be the most important conversation of my entire life up to that point. Dr. Chen shared with me that she had struggled with her own weight issues throughout her 20s and 30s, reaching nearly 250 pounds before she finally found an approach that worked for her sustainable weight loss and maintenance. She explained that her transformation hadn't happened through extreme diets or punishing exercise routines, but rather through a comprehensive lifestyle change that addressed both the physical and emotional aspects of overeating. She had worked with a team of professionals, including a nutritionist, a therapist who specialized in emotional eating, and a personal trainer who understood the unique challenges faced by people with significant amounts of weight to lose. Dr. Chen offered to connect me with the same team of professionals who had helped her lose over 80 pounds and maintain that weight loss for more than a decade. She explained that the program focused on creating sustainable habits rather than quick fixes, and that it addressed the underlying emotional and psychological factors that often sabotage traditional diet attempts. The approach included nutritional education, meal planning, gradual exercise progression, and most importantly, therapy sessions to help identify and change the thought patterns and behaviors that had led to weight gain in the first place. She emphasized that this wasn't about achieving a perfect body or conforming to societal standards, but rather about becoming healthy, confident, and capable of living the life I truly wanted. For the first time since the humiliating incident in my online class, I felt a spark of hope that maybe my situation wasn't as hopeless as I had believed. Dr. Chen's transformation was visible evidence that significant weight loss was possible, and her willingness to share her personal story with me made me feel less alone in my struggles. I left her office that day with contact information for her recommended professionals and a promise to myself that I would at least explore this option before making any final decisions about dropping out of school. The following Monday, I found myself sitting in the waiting room of Austin Wellness Center, nervously fidgeting with my phone while waiting to meet the team of professionals that Dr. Chen had recommended. I had spent the entire weekend researching their credentials and reading testimonials from other clients, trying to convince myself that this wasn't just another weight loss scam that would leave me disappointed and even heavier than before. The center specialized in what they called holistic weight management, which addressed not just diet and exercise, but also the psychological and emotional factors that contribute to weight gain and make it so difficult to maintain long-term results. I was skeptical, but desperate enough to try anything that might help me avoid the humiliation I had experienced in that online class ever again. My first appointment was with Dr. Rachel Martinez, a registered dietitian who had been working with overweight clients for over 15 years. She spent nearly 2 hours with me during our initial consultation, asking detailed questions about my eating habits, medical history, family background, and relationship with food that went far beyond anything I had experienced with previous doctors or diet programs. Instead of immediately putting me on a restrictive meal plan or telling me to cut out entire food groups, she explained that sustainable weight loss required understanding the root causes of my overeating and developing strategies to address those underlying issues. She ordered comprehensive blood work to check for hormonal imbalances, insulin resistance, and nutritional deficiencies that might be contributing to my weight struggles. The second part of my evaluation was with Dr. Michael Thompson, a therapist who specialized in emotional eating and body image issues. This session was more challenging than I had anticipated, because he asked me to explore the connection between my emotions and my eating patterns, something I had been avoiding for years. We discussed my childhood experiences with food, how I used eating as a coping mechanism for stress and anxiety, and the shame spiral that often led me to binge eat after trying to restrict my calories. Dr. Thompson explained that many people who struggle with significant weight issues are actually dealing with food addiction, which requires a different approach than traditional dieting methods that focus solely on willpower and calorie restriction. The final member of my support team was Lisa Rodriguez, a certified personal trainer who had experience working with clients who needed to lose more than 100 pounds. Unlike the intimidating fitness instructors I had encountered at commercial gyms in the past, Lisa was patient and understanding about my physical limitations and the anxiety I felt about exercising in public. She designed a gentle exercise program that I could do at home initially, focusing on building basic strength and endurance before progressing to more challenging activities. Her approach emphasized movement for health and stress relief, rather than punishment for eating, which was a completely different mindset than I had ever experienced with exercise. By the end of my first week of appointments, I had a comprehensive plan that included meal guidelines rather than strict restrictions, therapy sessions twice a week to address my emotional eating patterns, and a progressive exercise routine that started with just 15 minutes of walking per day. The team emphasized that this was a marathon rather than a sprint, and that sustainable results would take time and patience. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had professional support and a realistic plan for change, rather than just another impossible diet that would inevitably lead to failure and more weight gain. The first month of my transformation journey was both the most challenging and the most enlightening period of my entire adult life, as I began to understand the complex relationship between my emotions and my eating habits. Dr. Thompson's therapy sessions were revealing patterns I had never recognized before, including how I used food to cope with stress from school, loneliness from social isolation, and the deep shame I carried about my appearance. We worked on identifying my emotional triggers and developing alternative coping strategies that didn't involve eating, such as journaling, deep breathing exercises, and calling a friend when I felt overwhelmed. The hardest part was learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of immediately numbing them with food, which had been my automatic response for over a decade. Dr. Martinez's nutritional approach was unlike anything I had tried before because it focused on adding healthy foods rather than restricting everything I enjoyed eating. She taught me about macronutrients and how to balance proteins, carbohydrates, and healthy fats to keep my blood sugar stable and reduce cravings throughout the day. Instead of eliminating entire food groups, we worked on portion control and meal timing, ensuring that I was eating every 3 to 4 hours to prevent the extreme hunger that often led to binge eating episodes. She also introduced me to meal prep strategies that made healthy eating more convenient than grabbing fast food or ordering takeout, which had been my default options when I was busy with schoolwork. The exercise component with Lisa started so gradually that I almost didn't believe it would make any difference in my weight loss goals. We began with just 10 minutes of walking around my apartment complex each morning, which was embarrassing at first because I was so out of shape that even this minimal activity left me slightly winded. Lisa assured me that consistency was more important than intensity at this stage, and that building the habit of daily movement was the foundation for everything else we would accomplish together. She also taught me basic stretching routines and breathing exercises that helped reduce the chronic back pain I had been experiencing from carrying extra weight and sitting at my computer for long hours during online classes. By the end of my first month, I had lost 12 pounds and was starting to notice subtle changes in my energy levels and mood that were even more significant than the number on the scale. I was sleeping better at night, waking up more refreshed in the morning, and finding it easier to concentrate during my online classes without the constant brain fog that had plagued me for years. My skin was clearer, my digestion had improved dramatically, and I was experiencing fewer of the anxiety attacks that had become a regular part of my daily routine. Most importantly, I was beginning to believe that sustainable change was actually possible rather than just another temporary fix that would eventually fail like all my previous diet attempts. The most challenging aspect of this period was dealing with my family's reactions to my new lifestyle changes during our weekly video calls. My parents, who had struggled with their own weight issues throughout my childhood, were skeptical about my new approach and worried that I was setting myself up for another disappointment. They had watched me try various diets and exercise programs over the years, always gaining back more weight than I had lost, and they didn't want to see me go through that cycle of hope and failure again. My younger brother was more supportive but kept making jokes about my meal prep containers and exercise routine, which sometimes made me question whether I was being too obsessive about my new habits. Despite these external challenges, I was committed to continuing with the program because I could feel that something fundamental was shifting in my relationship with food and my body. The shame and self-hatred that had dominated my thoughts for so many years were slowly being replaced by curiosity and compassion as I learned to treat myself with the same kindness I would show a good friend. 3 months into my transformation journey, I had lost 38 pounds and was facing my first major test when I had to return to in-person classes for the spring semester at the University of Texas. The thought of seeing Tyler and other classmates who might have witnessed my humiliation during that online psychology class filled me with anxiety, but Dr. Thompson had been preparing me for this moment through our therapy sessions. We had practiced visualization techniques and developed strategies for handling potential confrontations or uncomfortable situations, including how to respond if anyone made comments about my appearance or weight loss. I was still nervous about being in public spaces where I couldn't control my environment like I could during online classes, but I was determined not to let fear keep me from completing my education. The first day back on campus was both terrifying and liberating as I walked across the quad wearing clothes that actually fit properly instead of the oversized hoodies and sweatpants that had been my uniform for years. Several classmates who hadn't seen me since before winter break did double takes when they recognized me, and I received more genuine compliments in one day than I had in the previous 2 years combined. The most significant moment came when I encountered Tyler in the hallway outside our psychology classroom, and instead of feeling the crushing shame and humiliation I had anticipated, I felt a surprising sense of indifference toward his opinion of me. His cruel comment had been the catalyst for positive changes in my life, and I realized that his judgment no longer had the power to define my self-worth or derail my progress. My increased confidence was evident in other areas of my life as well, particularly in my academic performance and social interactions with other students. I was participating more actively in class discussions, joining study groups that I had previously avoided due to social anxiety, and even considering applying for a teaching assistant position that would require public speaking and leadership skills. The mental clarity that came with improved nutrition and regular exercise was helping me think more clearly and retain information better than I had since starting college. My professors were commenting on the improvement in my work quality and my increased engagement with course material, which was boosting my confidence even further. The physical changes were becoming more dramatic as I entered my 4th month, with a total weight loss of 49 pounds that was noticeable to everyone around me. My face was more defined, my clothes were hanging loosely despite buying smaller sizes, and I was developing muscle tone in my arms and legs from Lisa's progressive strength training program. More importantly, I was experiencing health improvements that went far beyond appearance, including normalized blood pressure, improved cholesterol levels, and the complete elimination of the pre-diabetic symptoms that had worried my doctor during my last physical exam. I was sleeping through the night without the sleep apnea episodes that had plagued me for years, and I had energy to participate in activities that had been impossible when I was carrying an extra 110 pounds. The most unexpected benefit of my transformation was the way it was inspiring other people in my life to make positive changes in their own health and wellness routines. My roommate had started joining me for morning walks and was asking questions about meal prep strategies, while my parents were finally taking their own health issues seriously after seeing my dramatic improvements. Dr. Chen, who had started this entire journey by connecting me with the right resources, was so proud of my progress that she asked if I would be willing to speak with other students who were struggling with similar challenges. By month 6 of my transformation, I had lost 67 pounds and was experiencing challenges I never anticipated when I first started this journey with Dr. Chen's recommended team. The rapid weight loss had left me with loose skin around my arms and midsection that made me self-conscious, even though I was healthier and smaller than I had been since high school. Shopping for clothes had become a constant source of frustration because I was between sizes and nothing fit properly, forcing me to spend money on transitional clothing that would only last a few weeks before becoming too large. The psychological adjustment to my changing body was proving to be just as difficult as the physical transformation, because I still saw my former self when I looked in mirrors despite the dramatic changes that were obvious to everyone else. The most unexpected challenge came when I hit my first significant plateau during month 7, where my weight remained exactly the same for nearly 3 weeks, despite following my nutrition and exercise plan perfectly. Dr. Martinez had warned me that plateaus were a normal part of the weight loss process as my body adjusted to its new size, but experiencing one firsthand was incredibly frustrating and made me question whether I was doing something wrong. My measurements were still decreasing slightly, which meant I was losing fat and gaining muscle from my strength training routine, but the number on the scale refused to budge no matter how consistent I remained with my healthy habits. I found myself obsessing over every meal and workout, wondering if I should cut calories further or exercise more intensively to break through this stubborn phase. During this challenging period, Dr. Thompson helped me focus on non-scale victories that reminded me of how far I had come since that devastating online class incident. I could now climb 3 flights of stairs without getting breathless, had enough energy to study for hours without feeling exhausted, and was sleeping better than I had in years. My blood work showed dramatic improvements in all my health markers, including normal blood sugar levels and cholesterol numbers that were in the optimal range for the first time in my adult life. I was participating in campus activities that I had avoided for years, including joining an intramural volleyball team where my increased stamina and coordination were helping me contribute meaningfully to the team's success. The plateau finally broke during week 4 of month 7 when I lost 5 pounds in 1 week, which taught me the importance of trusting the process, even when progress seemed to stall. Dr. Martinez explained that my body had been making internal adjustments that weren't immediately visible on the scale, and the sudden drop in weight was the result of weeks of consistent effort finally paying off. This experience gave me confidence to continue with the program even when results weren't immediately apparent, because I had learned that sustainable weight loss wasn't always linear or predictable. I started taking progress photos every 2 weeks instead of weighing myself daily, which helped me focus on the overall transformation, rather than getting discouraged by daily fluctuations that were often influenced by factors beyond my control. The most significant change during this period was my evolving relationship with exercise, which had transformed from something I forced myself to do into an activity I genuinely enjoyed and looked forward to each day. Lisa had gradually increased the intensity and variety of my workouts, and I was now capable of activities that would have been impossible at my starting weight. I had joined a hiking group that explored trails around Austin every weekend, and I was amazed by my stamina and endurance on challenging terrain that required hours of sustained effort. Month 9 marked a significant milestone when I reached 85 pounds lost, and decided to share my transformation story on social media for the first time since beginning this journey. I had been hesitant to post about my weight loss because I didn't want to deal with unsolicited advice or negative comments. But Dr. Thompson encouraged me to consider how my story might inspire other people who were struggling with similar challenges. I posted a side-by-side comparison photo showing myself at my heaviest weight next to a current picture, along with a heartfelt caption about how that cruel comment in online class had ultimately led to the best year of my life. The response was overwhelming, with hundreds of comments from friends, classmates, and even strangers who shared their own struggles with weight and thanked me for being brave enough to share my journey. The most meaningful message came from a girl named Chloe, who was in my original psychology class and had witnessed the humiliating incident that started my transformation. She reached out privately to tell me that she had been struggling with her own weight issues and had been inspired by my visible changes over the past several months to seek help for her emotional eating patterns. She asked for recommendations about where to start her own journey, and I was able to connect her with Dr. Chen and the same team of professionals who had helped me achieve such dramatic results. Being able to help someone else gave me a sense of purpose that went beyond my personal transformation and reminded me that my experience could have a positive impact on other people's lives. As I approached my 10-month mark with a total loss of 93 pounds, I was facing new challenges related to maintaining my motivation as I got closer to my goal weight of 175 pounds. The dramatic changes that had kept me excited during the first 6 months were becoming more subtle, and I had to find new ways to stay committed to the program when progress felt slower and less noticeable. I started setting performance goals instead of just focusing on weight loss, like being able to run a 5K race without stopping or completing an advanced yoga class without modifications. These fitness milestones gave me something concrete to work toward and helped me appreciate what my body could do, rather than just how it looked. The social aspects of my transformation were becoming more apparent as I navigated dating for the first time since losing weight. Men who had never noticed me before were suddenly interested in conversations and asking for my phone number, which created mixed emotions about whether they were attracted to my personality or just my appearance. I had to learn how to set boundaries and recognize genuine interest versus superficial attraction, skills I had never needed to develop when I was invisible to most potential romantic partners. This new attention was flattering but also confusing, because I was still the same person inside despite my dramatically different exterior. My relationship with food had evolved into something I never thought possible during my years of emotional eating and failed diet attempts. I could now enjoy a piece of cake at birthday parties without feeling guilty, or using it as an excuse to abandon my healthy habits for the rest of the week. The comprehensive approach I had learned from my team had taught me how to incorporate treats into my lifestyle without derailing my progress, which felt like true freedom after years of all-or-nothing thinking. I was eating more variety than ever before while maintaining my weight loss, proving that sustainable transformation was about balance rather than restriction. Exactly 1 year after that devastating online class incident that changed my life forever, I stepped on the scale and saw 175 pounds, marking a total loss of 110 pounds through the comprehensive program that Dr. Chen had connected me with. The anniversary of Tyler's cruel comment had transformed from the worst day of my life into a celebration of the most incredible year of personal growth and achievement I had ever experienced. I took progress photos in the same spot where I had cried myself to sleep that February night, and the comparison was so dramatic that I could barely believe the transformation was real. The woman looking back at me in the mirror was confident, healthy, and radiant with the kind of inner glow that comes from taking control of your life and proving to yourself that change is possible. The celebration of reaching my goal weight was bittersweet because I realized that this wasn't the end of my journey, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, focused on maintenance and continued personal development. The comprehensive approach I had learned from Dr. Martinez, Dr. Thompson, and Lisa had taught me that sustainable weight management was a lifelong commitment rather than a temporary fix, and I was grateful to have the tools and support system necessary to maintain my results. I had developed healthy habits that felt natural rather than forced, including regular meal prep, daily exercise that I genuinely enjoyed, and coping strategies for stress that didn't involve emotional eating. These skills had become so integrated into my daily routine that maintaining my new weight felt achievable rather than overwhelming. 6 months into maintenance, I made the decision to change my major from general studies to nutrition science so I could help other people who were struggling with the same challenges I had faced during my heaviest years. My personal transformation had given me insights into the complexity of weight management that went far beyond what I could learn from textbooks alone, and I wanted to combine that lived experience with formal education to become a registered dietitian. Dr. Martinez became my mentor and helped me design a course of study that would prepare me for graduate school, and eventually working with clients who needed comprehensive support for sustainable weight loss. The most rewarding aspect of my new direction came when Dr. Chen asked me to speak at freshman orientation about overcoming challenges and finding resources for support during difficult times. Standing in front of hundreds of new students, I shared my story about how a moment of complete humiliation had led to the most transformative year of my life, and how the university's support services had literally saved me from dropping out and giving up on my dreams. Several students approached me afterward to share their own struggles with weight, mental health, and academic challenges, and I was able to connect them with the same resources that had helped me succeed. 2 years after my transformation began, I can honestly say that Tyler's cruel comment was the catalyst for positive changes that extended far beyond weight loss into every area of my life. I'm healthier, more confident, and more resilient than I ever imagined possible, with the energy and self-esteem to pursue goals that seemed impossible when I was carrying an extra 110 pounds. The comprehensive approach I learned didn't just help me lose weight. It taught me how to love and respect myself enough to make choices that support my long-term well-being and happiness. To anyone reading this who feels hopeless about their own struggles, I want you to know that transformation is possible at any age and any size, but it requires the right support system, professional guidance, and a commitment to addressing the underlying issues rather than just focusing on quick fixes.